Please be seated. For this morning session, the Chamber will hear the medical expert on their assessment of fitness to stand trial of the accused. And as President of the Trial Chamber on behalf of the bench, I would like to welcome the co-prosecutors, deputy co-prosecutors, counsels for the defense of Nuon Chea and Khieu Samphan, civil parties and civil party lawyers, and lead co-lawyers for civil parties, and for everyone in and around the courtroom. Grafje, could you please report to the chamber the attendance of the parties to today's proceedings? And in fact, today we will have two separate hearings. First, to hear the assessment by the medical expert on the fitness to stand trial of the accused. And the second part will be the continuation of the testimony of civil party Mosopani. Mr. President, for today's proceedings, all parties and individuals to today's proceedings are present in court. Nuon Chea is present in the holding cell downstairs as he waived his right to be present in the courtroom. A waiver has been handed to the Grafje. One national and one international medical expert, as well as the civil party Mosopani, are present to be called by the chamber. The two experts states that through their best knowledge, they have no relationship by blood or affiliation through any of the two accused, Nuon Chea or Khieu Samphan, nor through any civil parties recognized by the chamber in this case. The two experts already took an oath. President, thank you. And this morning, before we commence the hearing, the chamber has received a waiver from Nuon Chea due to his health, and he requests to follow the proceedings through a remote means from a holding cell downstairs. And he understands about his waiver through his counsel, and this does not mean that he waived his right from a fair and just trial. And his waiver to be present in the courtroom is supported by a medical report by the duty doctor at the ECC, which states that he has health problem and recommends that the chamber should allow him to follow the proceedings from the holding cell downstairs. And for that reason, the chamber grants Mr. Nuon Chea's request to follow the proceedings from a holding cell downstairs through a remote means for today's proceedings, as he expressly waives his rights to be present in the courtroom. And the AV unit, you are instructed to link the proceedings to the holding cell downstairs so that Nuon Chea can follow it. And that applies for today's proceedings. court officer, could you usher the two medical experts into the courtroom? President, on the 18th December 2014, the trial chamber held a fitness hearing for Nunchi and Kisapon's fitness to stand trial, and in accordance with Rule 32 of the internal rules, the chamber ordered an assessment, health and psychiatric assessment of the two accused for fitness to stand trial, as well as to assess various requests for the appropriate scheduling of the trial. The chamber ordered expert Chang Kian Min, a geriatrician, and Dr. Hu Li Na, an expert psychiatrist, to assess the accused on the 19th and 20th of January 2015 and prepare a report in English for each of the two accused, which shall be completed by 21st January 2015. As for the translation of the medical experts, will be delivered to the counsel for the defense by 22nd. The experts delivered the report as instructed, and the chamber advised that the information contained within the report shall assist the chamber to decide whether each of the accused is fitness to stand trial. And in accordance with the criteria by Stuttgart of the ICTY, the expert medical report will present their report and will be questioned by the co-prosecutors, the civil party lead co-lawyers, as well as the counsels for the defense. And first of all, let me say good morning to the medical expert. And before that, we would like to briefly ask you some questions. And first, I'd like to put question to Dr. Hu Li Na. Doctor, is your name Hu Li Na? Answer, yes, that is correct. Question, can you tell the chamber your date of birth? Answer, I was born on the 5th of May 1963. Question, where is your current address? And doctor, please be advised you should only respond when the microphone is operational. Answer, my current address is at 291 Cambodia Kram Boulevard, Matapip, Sangkat, Phnom Penh. Question, According to the oral report of the greffier just now, and to the best of your knowledge, you have no relationship or affiliation with any of the two accused, namely Nunchi and Khieu Sampon, or through any of the civil parties admitted in case 002. Is that correct? Answer: yes, that is correct. Questioned. The oral report by the greffier also stated that you have already taken an oath before appearing in the courtroom. Is that correct? Answer: yes, that is correct. Questioned. Dr. Holina, is there any change in your current position or occupation? Previously, we know that you're head of the psychiatry department of Khmer Suvit Friendship Hospital, as well as professor of psychiatry at the University of Health Science. Answer: currently, I stopped working for 2 months with a permission from the Khmer Suvit Friendship Hospital, and I worked at a psychiatric clinic that is my own private clinic. However, I still engage in teaching at the University of Health Science. Question. In February 2014, you were appointed by the Chamber as an expert to assess the fitness of both accused, Nunchi and Khieu Sampon, and you appeared and testified before the Chamber several times. Is there any change in relation to your qualification after the latest examination of Nunchi and Khieu Sampon in March 2014? Answer. After I made the assessment of the two accused, I further developed my career. I participated in various national and international workshops and seminars in order to increase my capacity. And as for the two accused that I examined, it is my observation that their mental state remains the same. Thank you, Doctor. And I'd like now to put questions to Dr. Chan Kin Ming. Doctor, is Chan Kin Ming your name? Is my pronunciation correct?
Yes, Your Honor, it is correct.
Question. When were you born, Doctor?
I was born on 21st November 1959.
And what is your nationality?
I'm a Singaporean, Singapore citizen.
And where is your current address?
My current address in Singapore is number 6 Napier Road, Gleneagles Medical Centre, Hex 07-03.
And what is your occupation and where you practice your profession?
I'm a senior consultant geriatrician, and I have my own private practice in both Gleneagles Medical Centre as well as Mount Alvernia Medical Centre. I'm also a visiting consultant to the geriatric department of the Singapore General Hospital.
According to the oral report of the greffier just now, to the best of your knowledge, you have no relationship of affiliation with any of the accused, Noon Chi and Kieu Sampon, or through any of the civil parties admitted in case 002/02. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Also, in the oral report, it stated that you have already taken an oath before appearing in the courtroom. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
How long have you been practicing as a geriatrician?
I have been practicing as a geriatrician since 1988, and I suppose that's more than 20 years. I have done my training in Singapore, and I have also been working for 1 year at the Victoria Geriatric Unit in Scotland. And during that time when I was working there, I completed a diploma in geriatric medicine, which was conferred to me by the Royal College of Surgeons and Physicians, Glasgow.
Thank you, Doctor. And since you are a geriatrician, could you confirm that you are qualified in the fields of cardiology and neurology?
As a geriatrician, we are trained in all aspects of the health of older people. So in the area of cardiology and neurology, I am able to make expert comments on these issues.
Thank you. Before we proceed to the presentation of the expert report and the examination, the trial chamber wishes to inform Mr. Expert that during your presentation, as well as in response to the questions put to you by the trial chamber and the parties, you may choose to work together, share the work on a voluntary basis or on the mutual agreement, or one of you may decide to either make the presentation or provide overall responses. In response to the questions put to you by the trial chamber and the parties, if the questions are of general nature and are not directing to any specific expert, one of you may respond to those questions and the other may complement the answers or may resolve to remain silent. During the brief presentation of the report and in response to the questions, both of you may decide who is going to present or respond. The trial chamber wishes to remind Mr. Experts that it is very important to speak slowly and in subsequent order to facilitate the official interpretation. Mr. Experts are also asked to use as few technical, complicated terms as possible to make it clear and easy to understand. And Mr. Expert, you are among the three experts, including Mr. Sina Fazel, whom the trial chamber appointed in February 2014 to assess the fitness to stand trial of Mr. Noon Chi and Mr. Kieu Sampon. Is that correct?
បាទប្រជាត្រឹមត្រូវបាទ
Yes, that is correct. Thank you. And on the 18th December 2014, rather, then your team prepared an assessment report related to Noon Chi and Khieu Sampon on 26 March 2014, as requested by the trial chamber. Has your team really carried out the assessment?
But
Yes, we did. And on 18 December 2014, the trial chamber appointed both of you to reassess the fitness to stand trial of Mr. Noon Chi and Khieu Sampon. Then, from 19 to 20 January 2015, you examined medical conditions of Mr. Noon Chi and Mr. Khieu Sampon by consulting with the physicians who have treated Mr. Noon Chi and Mr. Khieu Sampon at Khmer Soviet Friendship Hospital. Have you really done it? Answer, yes, we have. And on 21st January 2015, you made a joint report assessing the health of the two accused, Mr. Noon Chi and Khieu Sampon. Document E329/4 and E329/5, so as to respond to the trial chamber's request. Have you really done it? Answer, yes, we have. Thank you. And before I hand the floor to Judge Franz, who has been appointed by the bench to put the questions to the two experts, could you summarize the assessment fitness report of the two accused on their fitness to stand trial and provide recommendations to the trial chamber on any treatments or cares which are required to cope with the current medical conditions of the two accused?
Your Honor, I would like to start first by giving a summary on Mr. Neucher's physical health and recommendations, and that will be followed by Dr. Hood, who will be giving a summary and commenting on his mental health. When we visited Mr. Neucher on two occasions during the 19th and 20th of January, we found that physically he has not changed very much compared to the last time when we saw him, which was less than a year ago in March 2014. As usual, he was seated at the edge of his bed with his hands holding on to his walking frame, and his back was unsupported. He was cheerful. He has good eye contact when he spoke to us in a very loud and clear voice. He was able to answer our questions confidently. And in the physical examination, when I examined him, I found that his blood pressures, his vital signs, meaning his blood pressures, pulse rate, respiratory rates were normal. And I have also reviewed his previous weekly reports, and they had also been normal. In relation to his cerebral neurological system, we find that there was no deterioration. His reflexes were normal, but there was some limitation when he raised his right leg because of stiffness of his knees, his hip, as well as some back pain. I also have to note that he has a chronic back pain for a long time, which in the past has been confirmed by an X-ray showing multiple osteophytes. Osteophytes are basically wear and tear of the bones with abnormal calcifications around it, and that could dig into the muscles and sometimes into the nerves, causing the back pain that he has been complaining of for a very long time. But he said that the pain is worse only when he changed position. When he lies down, he could do so by himself, but with tolerable pain. But when he sits up, he needs help to pull him up, and that's where he complained of a bit more severe pain. But the pain would go away once he achieved his final position. The pain would go away in a very short time. We felt that his vision is relatively good in spite of the left cataract that has not been removed since the last assessment. He was able to read with his right eye, and he could look at his watch. He could read the names of countries that were printed on a world map and on a globe, which he has inside his room. He did complain about some noise in his ear, a medical condition which we call tinnitus, and this is associated usually with some dizziness, especially when there is change in position of his head. And that is something new compared to the last assessment we saw of him in March 2014. But the dizziness also lasted a short time once he achieved his final position. So overall, my conclusion for Mr. Nuchia is that his back pain is chronic and is not going to go away, but over time it may get worse as a result of the normal age degeneration. The dizziness is due to an age-related degeneration of the nerves in his ears, and again, it is unlikely to go away, and it may further deteriorate and progress as he grows older. And being a frail man as he is at risk of deconditioning with rapid decline of his physical function. So our recommendation was that he should continue with his physiotherapy once to twice a week so as to maintain his muscle mass and his limb dexterity and his functional status.
Dr. Hudlina, Mr. President, Your Honors, I would like to make a brief summary concerning mental condition of Mr. Nguyen Chia. Based on our two-day examination, we observed that his mental condition is stable. In March 2004, from March 2004 until January 2014, it is less than 1 year, we observed that his memory is still stable. We also examined his fitness to stand trial, and we applied Struga case the 7 criteria, and after our examination nothing has changed. He is able and he is fit to stand trial as we assessed in the latest report, in the last report. In particular, Mr. Nguyen Chia, his mental condition is good, so he could participate in the trial proceedings. So this is my brief summary. President, what about Mr. Kyosompon health condition? Dr. Huadlina, thank you, Mr. President. Next, I would like to mention the development of a mental condition of Mr. Kyosompon. In March 2014, from that time until January 2015, it is less than 1 year, as I said. The memory of Mr. Kyosompon has not changed. It is stable. It is in good condition. And his fitness, whether he is fit to stand trial, we also applied the criteria of a Struga case. There are 7 criteria. From my examination, I believe his mental condition is stable. He has the ability to participate in the trial proceedings. And as for our recommendation in relation to mental condition, I believe nothing hinders his participation in the trial proceedings.
Your Honor, I would like to give a summary on the physical conditions of Mr. Kyosompon. We visited him, examined him on the 19th and 20th of January in his cell. And during the time, on both occasions when we arrived, he was actually lying down in his bed reading a book. And upon knowing that we are here, he could sit up in bed all by himself while he awaited us getting into the room, and he was able to smile as he recognized our faces but not our names. He was able to move around his room unassisted, moving from his bed to the table and to the bathroom and back. He was able to take hold of books and files of documents to flip through to show us certain passages that he wants us to read. He spoke loudly, forcefully, without any slurring of speech. Although he complained that his hearing had deteriorated, but it was adequate for us to communicate with him even as we spoke in a normal tone. Although there were occasions when he leaned forward with his left ear in front, presumably to listen to us better. He was able to read sometimes without a magnifying glass, but there was certainly a magnifying glass on the books that he was reading. On his physical examination, we found that at that point in time, his blood pressures was very normal, 130/70, and the pulse rate was 70 per minute, also normal. And we know that he had just been discharged from the hospital with bronchitis and hypertension, but we found that his blood pressure has normalized. Examination of his chest also showed that his lungs were clear, and we reviewed his x-rays at the Khmer Soviet Friendship Hospital, and the last x-ray before his discharge was clear, was normal. During the time of our interview, he was in good spirits, maintaining that he was only a little tired. We know that he does have a history of chronic backache, and in view of his age, we would also expect that his backache can worsen over time because of age. And he has 2 histories of strokes before. Therefore, our recommendation is that his blood pressures will need to be monitored closely, because high blood pressure and his age are known risk factors for another stroke. But overall, we felt that there's nothing in his physical examination that would affect his ability to stand trial. That's my report, Mr. President.
President, thank you, Mr. Experts. Next, I would like to hand over the floor to Judge Vance, who is assigned to put specific questions to the 2 experts on behalf of the Chamber. You may now have the floor, Judge Vance.
Thank you, President. Good morning. I will first shortly raise yesterday afternoon's incident. I'll then, and this is more for the benefit of the public, walk you very summarily through the remainder of the report, and then ask questions, some of them while we are going, some of them at the end. So, as about yesterday afternoon's incident, are you aware that there was another incident, meaning we had to adjourn early because Kheu Sampang was no longer able to follow proceedings?
Yes, we were briefly informed that there was such an incident.
Are you in possession of the report of the doctor made at that time?
No, Your Honor.
Then I would perhaps suggest, we have received the report only very recently, so perhaps we can give the Khmer version, and my understanding is there is only a Khmer version of this very short report to the experts. One of them speaks Khmer. I think it will only take a minute to read it, and we can then include it into the overall assessment. So, while this is being done, I'll just shortly inform the public what else beside seeing Nuon Chea and Kheu Sampang yourself you have done before you reached the conclusions. Now all the parties are in possession of the full report, so I will be very brief and sum up. I'll start with Nunchia. You have also looked at the history of the... Do you wish me to give you a couple of minutes to read? Yeah. Okay.
What is it? What is 9? Saturation.
I'll ask you anyway to shortly summarize this report for the benefit of everybody, but I would first, as I said, want to make a couple of additional remarks on how you reached your conclusions. And I'll start out with Nunchia. You had a look at his medical history. You stated that he has had hypertension over 30 years and ischemic heart disease in 1995. What is this in lay terms?
Ischemic heart disease is just meant that he has a weak heart.
Moderate kidney insufficiency, an attack of cerebrovascular disease in 1998 in lay terms.
He suffered a stroke in 1998.
And chronic backache. You then, additionally to obviously talking and to himself, you consulted with treating doctors at the Khmer Soviet Friendship Hospital, where he has regular checkups. They basically reported that he was slower in walking, but nothing else extraordinary. You then consulted with the detention facilities treating doctors, who mentioned occasional dizziness, no significant complaints from Nunchia. You consulted with detention staff, who also said they felt he seems weaker when he walks. They also mentioned the dizziness. Nunchia assessed himself as feeling physically weaker. Then when it comes to mental health, that was about physical health. The same organizations or bodies were consulted. The treating doctors at the Khmer Friendship Hospitals reported no problems, considered concentration as appearing normal. Chief of detention staff noticed no specific memory problems. You then mentioned, we know the conclusions and what you have done. You then mentioned that Nunchia's memory and cognitive function will gradually deteriorate further with age, and you therefore recommend regular reviews in the future. So my first question is, how often should these reviews take place, provided there is no extraordinary incident in between? The recommendation for the reviews is the last page, the last paragraph of your assessment of Nunchia. And the question was, how often is regular?
Dr. Hudlina, I would like to respond to Your Honor's question in reference to paragraph 46 of Nguyen Chu Jia reports. We recommended that Nguyen Jia cognitive function should be regularly reviewed. I received a report from the Khmer Soviet Friendship Hospital. This is a weekly report, and I have never seen the mental condition has regularly reviewed. Only physical conditions has been examined. It is wise to review Nguyen Chia's mental condition once a month or once in every 2 months. And I believe that ECC asked the doctors to review the mental condition of Mr. Nguyen Chia annually. When you read the paragraph 46, I believe that we recommend that the specialized doctors should review cognitive function of Mr. Nguyen Chia regularly and based on the specialized skills. And I observed that the report of Mr. Nguyen Chia's mental condition refer to only general condition without mentioning the specific cognitive condition of the accused Nguyen Chia. When I talked to the treating doctor or duty doctor about Mr. Nguyen Chia mental condition, I received the reply that Mr. Nguyen Chia mental condition is normal. That is why the treating doctors put such notes in the reports. Once again, in paragraph 46 of the report, cognitive function of Mr. Nguyen Chia should be reviewed at least once a year. So this is my brief response.
Just to clarify from me, perhaps it is a translation issue, but I've heard that your last recommendation was once a year, and before that you said once every month or every 2 months. Can we clarify that?
Answer. I said once a year is to comply with the order by the trial chamber, as we are appointed here to assess his cognitive function. We were assigned to assess his mental condition in 2014, 13, 14, and 15. This can be considered a regular review. And in addition to the review of his cognitive function once a year, Mr. Nguyen Chia cognitive function should be reviewed additionally once a month or once in every 3 months to make it complete for our information. And as I said, I talked to the treating doctors of Mr. Nguyen Chia, and I received the reply that the cognitive function of Mr. Nguyen Chia has not degenerated. That is why she or he does not need assistance from Khmer Soviet Friendship Hospital to specifically review Mr. Nguyen Chia cognitive function. and I recommend that there should be a doctor from Khmer Soviet Friendship Hospital specialized in cognitive function to review regularly once a month or once every 2 or 3 months, so that we have full information during the time that we conduct cognitive function annually for Mr. Nguyen Chia.
So let me sum up and see if I understood you correctly. What apparently the two of you are recommending is a yearly assessment which covers everything, physical and mental, and additionally to that, 1, 2, or 3 monthly assessment of cognitive functions which can be done locally. Now, provided this is correct, do we have the capacities locally to do these assessments? Meaning, do we have doctors who can do it?
To my knowledge, yes. There are specialists in psychiatry, and I believe there are 30 or 40 experts in this field. And also there are some of these specialists working at the Khmer Soviet Friendship Hospital, and they are able to carry out this assessment. I believe it is better that there should be a regular report in supplementary to the weekly physical assessment, because this weekly or monthly medical report does not include the details of the cognitive function assessment. Thank you.
Thank you. And you wouldn't want to be a bit more clear on where between 1 and 3 months we should actually go? Is 3 months enough for the beginning, every 3 months?
I believe this is based on the actual situation, but I believe a better regular assessment is better. For that reason, it would be ideal to have a monthly assessment, and if it cannot be done, then an assessment every 3 months is also a good start.
Thank you. I'm now moving on to He Sampang. When it came to physical conditions, you looked at his history.
President, Council for Khieu Samphan, you may proceed.
Oui, merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm very sorry for interrupting Judge Fence. I simply wanted to make a remark. We have already informed the Chamber that there were a certain number of details concerning Mr. Khieu Samphan's health condition. And we impressed upon the importance of medical confidentiality, and we believe that it is very important for the experts to be able to summarize their findings and positions regarding Mr. Khieu Samphan's fitness to stand trial. Now, I foresee, I'm not entirely sure of the questions that the judges will ask, nor what the parties will ask, but as far as the questions posed by Judge Fens with respect to Mr. Nguyen Chia's health status, I don't believe this has posed a problem. I just simply want to say that if we are to delve into a certain level of detail with respect to the health reports, that we wish to put on notice that we may submit a request to hold these hearings in camera.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be as general as I was with Nunchia when it comes to presenting the way the experts arrived at their conclusion. Beck, you looked at his history, basically high blood pressure and asymptotic hypothyroidism. What does that mean?
Your Honor, it just meant that the thyroid gland is not producing sufficient thyroid hormone.
And in 2007, he had a transient cerebrovascular accident. Does that mean stroke?
Yes, he had a mild stroke.
Then another one in May 2008, last admitted to the Calmette Hospital for 1 month for respiratory tract infection in 2009. Then you mentioned some hearing problems, a cataract surgery in 2013, a chest infection admission in 2013. You reminded us that since the last evaluation there had been 3 episodes of hospitalization in March and May 2014 and the most recent in January 2015. They were due to fatigue, fever, hypertension, and in one case to acute bronchitis. You talked to the Khmer Friendship Hospital staff, who basically had nothing special to add. The detention treating doctors said that felt that Kheu Samphan was feeling better, mentioned the blood pressure and the bronchitis. The detention staff said he had never reported any specific health problems beyond the ones we have mentioned now, and that he's very committed to exercising. Then when it comes to the mental health, none of the agencies questioned, mentioned anything specific or extraordinary. He himself, his self-assessment was that his memory was fine. He could remember his recent event, like the menu, for instance, during lunchtime. He said sometimes he couldn't remember what he did last week or yesterday, but no specific issues otherwise. Now, I want now to move from, and this is about Kheu Samphan, from this expert report to by now it's 3 incidents we had last week. We all know that we had to adjourn early because Kheu Samphan wasn't able to follow proceedings any longer. We had one of those incidents on the 8th of January, one on the 21st of January, and the last one as recently as yesterday. And we had asked you to supplement your report in commenting on these incidents, and I will now ask you to shortly summarize your findings on all 3 incidents. So I'll also ask you, for the benefit of everybody, because as I said, the 3rd report, the last report, does not yet exist in any other language than Khmer. So would you please present your findings on those 3 incidents?
Yes, Your Honor. Now, let me first start by commenting on the incident on the 12th of January, where he was, where the court was adjourned and he was subsequently brought to hospital. We reviewed the daily medical records of Mr. Kheu, and we found that on the morning of the trial date, namely the 12th of January, his blood pressure was 150/90, which is higher than his usual blood pressures as we checked through his previous records. His pulse rate was 112, again much higher by any standards and higher than his usual pulse rates. And of course, when he was brought into hospital, they realized that his oxygen was so-called insufficient. The saturation was 93 or 94. And after a variety of tests, he was started on some intravenous injection antibiotics, and subsequently the blood pressure, pulse, everything normalizes. Now, looking back at this particular incident, firstly, I do not think that the blood pressure was the cause of his problem. I think at the start of the trial, he was already beginning to feel unwell. Although, when we asked Mr. Q Sompon, he said that he was well that morning. That's why our conclusion was that at that point in time, he probably has what we call a subacute chest infection. It was not severe enough to cause a rise in temperature, nor severe enough to cause him feel breathless or unwell, but the vital signs are showing it, in the sense that his pressure and his pulse rate were not normal compared to his usual. And of course, with the course of antibiotics treatment in the hospital, he recovered, and the subsequent X-rays and the subsequent oxygen levels in his body went back to normal, and his normal is 97-98%. So that's my comment on the incident on the 12th of January. Now, the second incident was on the 21st of January, and because of that, both Dr. Hood and myself came down to interview the medical center doctor as well as Mr. Q himself on the 22nd. And we interviewed him, and he said that at the start he felt well, and we also noted that his blood pressure that morning was 100, was about 140 over 70, with a pulse rate of 82, and when he felt unwell in the afternoon, I beg your pardon. I don't have the email that I sent off as a supplementary report. It will be good for me to have that so that I can be more specific with his blood pressure.
May I ask one of the legal officers to provide an English version of the email to the expert? Matthew?
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. Now, his blood pressures on the morning of the trial on the 21st of January was 135 over 70, and his pulse rate was 76 per minute. And both were normal by his usual standards. The oxygen saturation was 98%. Again, that was normal. There was no mention about what his respiratory rate was that morning. However, when he felt unwell and when the court was adjourned at 3:30 in the afternoon, his vital signs were taken at 4 p.m. by the attending duty doctor. His blood pressure was 140/70. His pulse rate was 82 per minute. His oxygen saturation was 95%, and that is still normal for someone of his age. Again, no respiratory rate was recorded. So again, for that second incident, a blood pressure of 140/70, which is just 5 millimeter mercury higher than what he had in the morning, could have caused him such to be so symptomatic as to call for an adjournment of the court proceedings. When we interviewed him on the 22nd of January, he was able to recount his what happened the day before, and the thing that came out most strongly was the complaint of fatigue that he felt in the afternoon. In his own words, as accurately as I can recall, he said that if the morning session was to end by 11:30, then he would have enough time for his lunch as well as a short break to rest, to lie down. And if he has that, then he has no problem continuing the afternoon session. I've actually made note of that in my report because that was what he said. And as a geriatrician, and of course with my colleague, Dr. Hood, we felt that it is not unreasonable for someone of his age, being 84 years old and with his known physical conditions of hypertension, history of strokes and chronic bronchitis, to feel fatigue, and as a result of the fatigue, to cause him to feel dizzy and to cause him to feel weak and unable to continue. At this point, I would like to make a general statement about hypertension, high blood pressure. Usually, or rather, if we look at all the medical literature about high blood pressure, you have no symptoms of high blood pressure. And although many lay people would associate their dizziness, their headache to blood pressure, there is actually no medical correlation. Certainly, a blood pressure of 140/70 would not have accounted for that discomfort. And therefore, on the second incident, I do not think that his blood pressure was the cause. It is likely that it is his physical fatigue that has taken its toll. Considering also that he had just been discharged from hospital, suffering from an infection of his chest requiring injection antibiotics, even though the normal parameters that we use to gauge whether a person has fully recovered from that infection, namely, we look at the white cell counts, we look at a biochemical parameter called C-reactive protein, CRP. We look at the X-rays, they have all normalized. So effectively, the person has been treated and cleared of the infection, but the toll of the infection on the body persists. And in older people, sometimes they would take a week or two before they fully recover their constitution, so to speak. So that is my comment on the incident of the 21st of January. Now, for the incident yesterday, when I checked when we visited him, when I checked his blood pressure, myself, it was in the holding cell. He was at the holding cell when I checked his blood pressure. It was 140/70 with a pulse rate of 82. And at that time, his respiratory rate was 18. Now, based on the report right in front of me and with the contents, some of the contents being interpreted to me by Dr. Hood, his blood pressure when he felt unwell was 160/90. His respiratory rate was 84 per minute. Beg your pardon. His pulse rate was 84 per minute, and his respiratory rate was 28 per minute, which is much higher than his usual. There was also a figure of 9, presumably under the section on oxygen saturation. So whether it was 90 or 90-something, I don't know, because there was only a number 9 that was written down there. So obviously, at that point in time, yes, the blood pressure has risen 160/90, but I do not think that again is a cause, because 160/90 is still not symptomatic for most patients. I say most because I cannot generalize that to Mr. Q. If we look at the medical literature, when we talk about a blood pressure that is symptomatic enough to cause dizziness and headaches and so forth, weakness, then we are looking at a blood pressure of 180/100 or 110 diastolic. So this is still well below that symptomatic range. But of course, we are dealing with an individual, and different people may have different tolerance to blood pressure. But it's interesting to note that his respiratory rate is 28. Now, when one is excited, when one talks in a very excited manner, and in the course of our 2 days that we interviewed Mr. Q, when we touch on certain points, he was very passionate about defending himself, explaining himself, and he can be hyperventilating, which is a normal response when one gets excited. An increase in blood pressure is also a normal response when one gets excited. Even doing mental arithmetic can cause the blood pressure to go up. So at the end of, or during a trial session with a pressure of 160/90, my conclusion is that yes, it is high, but it may be appropriately high depending on what was being discussed, what was he being questioned about at that point in time. And when one gets worked up, And when we start to hyperventilate, physiologically the body breathes fast, and when we tend to blow out the carbon dioxide in the body, then the arteries in the brain will constrict and we will get dizzy. Because we get excited, we hyperventilate, we get dizzy. And when carbon dioxide in the blood goes down because we were hyperventilating, then our blood becomes more alkaline. And that binds up the calcium in our system, and it affects our muscles. It causes cramps, it causes the tremors and the trembling that each time we heard him complaining about. Although we have not witnessed it ourselves, but based on the history, we find that it is likely that in the process of physical fatigue, in the process of being very excited and involuntarily we hyperventilate, he develops this dizziness as well as the cramps and the tremors that he was experiencing during that time. So that's my assessment of the third incident. Thank you.
Thank you. I have first two questions to clarify what you just said, and then two follow-up questions. First of all, and for the record, when did you take the vitals yesterday, and when, according to the report, were the vitals taken in the afternoon?
I took the record of his blood pressure in the morning when he was still in his holding cell. I cannot remember the exact time, but it must be 9 something in the morning.
And does the report about the afternoon incident mention a time?
Yes. Yes, I have the time for the morning. I took the blood pressure at 9:15. And the medical report, the doctor reviewed him at 3 in the afternoon.
Thank you. Then two follow-up questions to what you said just previously. I note that the 4 parameters mentioned in all the incident reports are blood pressure, pulse rate, respiratory rate, and oxygen saturation. Now, you already explained symptoms of blood pressure and respiratory rate variations. Would you be able to tell us if it is possible to assign certain symptoms to pulse and oxygen saturation? So what would a patient feel if this were abnormal?
Yes. If the saturation is low, when we say low for someone of his age at 84, we are really looking at below 92%. I believe, as I read through all his daily reports, there were none that had that were below 92%. Of course, if we lack oxygen, one of the symptoms would have been breathlessness. It also goes to say that it doesn't mean that every complaint of breathlessness means that oxygen is low, because breathlessness is a very subjective symptom. And there were times when the oxygen saturations were normal and yet the person still complains of breathlessness, and vice versa. As for the pulse rate, a high pulse rate, again, depends on the sensitivity of the individual to his own body. Sometimes the person may not even know that the pulse rate is high, and sometimes they may feel palpitations. They can feel the heart pounding in the chest when they have a high pulse rate.
I noted that you repeatedly, when you described the parameter, used words like usual, normal, symptomatic. That's clearer for me, the last one. But is it possible to give a range of normal or usual for each of these parameters for Koh Sampang, for a person of that age, or is that impossible?
Yes, generally we look at a cutoff of 140. Anything up to 140, we can consider that as normal. Above 140 to maybe 160, in the literature, we consider that as stage 1 hypertension or mild hypertension. So above 160, then we consider that as moderate, and severe would be 180 and above. For the diastolic, 90 again is top normal of the diastolic blood pressure. If you are looking at someone who is hypertensive, then we are looking at 90 to 95. And 95 to 100 would be mild, above 100 will be moderate, and above 120 will be severe hypertension. When we, sorry, Your Honor, can I continue? When we look at the blood pressures of a person and decide whether they are hypertensive or not, it is the resting blood pressure. It is a blood pressure when they have been at rest physically and mentally for 15 minutes at least on 3 readings. If we are just looking at someone who feels unwell out of a courtroom after all the exchanges, and we check the blood pressure, we do expect it to be high, and this would have been a normal physiological response to the circumstances.
I'm coming to my last questions, and this pertains to the schedule. You already mentioned that you recommended an extended lunch break, so basically shave off 1 hour, half an hour from the morning session. Now, my question is, and now let me first back up. You have made it clear, both of you, that the conditions of none of the accused will improve. So we might be confronted with the need in the future to further reduce. Should that be the case, from your point of view, from the medical point of view, does it make more sense to shorten the days in a week or shorten the hours in a day? Meaning, does it make more sense to go 3 full days, for instance, to allow for a longer rest period, or to stay with 4 days and just limit potentially further the number of hours?
Yes, Your Honor. I think it makes more sense for us to give him more rest during the day of the trial rather than to have 3 days of packed activity and 4 days of rest.
Thank you. That concludes my questioning.
President, thank you very much, Judge Friends and Mr. Experts. It is now time for break. You may now have the floor as international co-prosecutors.
Very quickly, Your Honor, it's probably completely my fault, but I didn't quite get the last answer. The witness, I believe, said which was better, the fewer days per week or the number of hours per day. And did I understand correctly, he said better to shorten the day and have it 4 days a week?
No, let me see if I understood it correctly. My understanding was that it is exactly the other way around. Better to give more rest during the day, but still stay with X number of days than limit the number of days in a week. Did I get this correctly?
Yes, absolutely.
President, it is now a convenient time for break. The chamber take break from this time until 10:50. During the break time, court officer, you are instructed to facilitate a proper place for Mr. Experts and have them return before 10 to 11. The court is adjourned.